Hey guys, and welcome to Relationship Chronicles. Today we have a cheating revenge story from one of my subscribers that I will walk you through with. And afterwards, I'll give my opinion and advice to this subscriber on how to deal with this situation. Here we go. If you're refusing pay for college for a child, I have no legal obligation to any more throwaway account. For the sake of length, I'll try to stick to the facts and keep it brief. I 50M legally have 3 children with my ex 51, Adam 23M, Chris 21M, and Sophie 18F. Biologically, the first 2 children are mine and youngest is the result of my wife's infidelity. I discovered this the day when Sophie was 2 years old, and we had to rush Sophie to the emergency room. I filed for divorce 2 months later. I got 50-50 custody of my own children. But since Sophie was legally minor, had to pay child support for her, and was very bitter and resentful about it. I tried to fight it at first, but in the end, decided to suck it up to save myself the stress. But I made it very clear to my ex that outside of child support, I would take no other responsibility for the girl and would shut down any attempts at being her father. But I would make the effort to still be polite to Sophie. After some time, I learned to trust again, and remarried a wonderful woman who made it very clear that she and her daughter were a package deal. I accepted this and did everything I could to try and be there for my stepdaughter, Caddy 17F. Aside from the typical ups and downs, I would say I managed to make a great family life for myself. We'd have family nights. I attended most after-school events, took my family on fun vacations and put my sons through school and paid for their apartments and cars. They were on their own for gas money. Chris is expected to graduate this coming summer, and I made a silly post on social media about how relieved I was going to be that I only had one more kid to put through school left. A couple of days later, I got a message from my ex asking me to pay for Sophie's college expenses on my own, since the pandemic has made money tight. I asked her what she meant and referred to my post, and I reminded her that my legal obligation to Sophie ended the day she turned 18, and that I was talking about Katie. My ex was furious, demanded to know why I was willing to pay for Katie and not Sophie, since neither of them are related to me. I countered by saying that I knew up front Katie wasn't my biological child and agreed to care for her instead of being conned into doing it like I was for Sophie. After that, I got a call from Sophie asking what she did to make me hate her so much and to leave her feeling so excluded. I told her softly that I don't hate her and that nothing about this situation was her fault. But the simple truth is that it wasn't personal. I'm just not her father. Since then, my sons have told me that Sophie was becoming really depressed. My ex is blaming me, but I don't see what I have to do with it, AITA edit, just to be clear, because I keep seeing the same questions. 1. The kids know why I've divorced their mother. To my ex claims that Sophie was the result of a one-night stand and doesn't know who her father is, which is one of the reasons why I was kept on the hook for CES 3. After I learned the truth, I was very angry and didn't think I could handle raising a child that I was tricked into caring for. So I decided to keep my distance, for just because Sophie wasn't mine, and I treated as such doesn't mean that I was horrible to the girl. I also made sure that my children knew that what happened between their mother and me was not Sophie's fault, and they should never be mean to her. Update mods didn't approve separate posts. So here it is. Thank you to everyone for their kind words of support. A lot of you have suggested therapy, and for the longest time, I never felt like I needed it. But after everything new that's happened, I've decided that talking to a professional won't hurt. I thought I buried my anger and hurt toward my ex years ago. But now, new information has been revealed that's just making me angry all over again. Before we continue, please like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Not too long after my initial fight with my ex, she and Sophie got into a fight that ended up so bad that Sophie was kicked out of the home. Sophie called her brothers, and they in turn called me, and she is currently staying with my wife, Katie. And I apparently, in spite of my efforts to maintain a boundary, my ex kept telling Sophie that if she was well-behaved and did good in school, that I would think of her as a daughter again. It was my ex's way of getting Sophie to be obedient. When I made my post, Sophie thought that I was finally giving her the validation that my ex had always promised. And when I didn't, it was just chaos. Sophie called my ex horrible names and demanded to know her BO dad. My ex refused and told her if she was going to be disrespectful, she had to live elsewhere. Originally, some of you suggested that in spite of Sophie's blood type, she could still be my daughter, and that was really starting to get to me. Now that Sophie was staying with me, I took some of her DNA and sent it off for testing, and couldn't believe the results that I sent it again for a second time. To my shock, Sophia and I are indeed related. She's just not my daughter. Like I said, the bad feelings are all starting to come back to me again, but this new information is just putting me in a bad place again. I don't even know how or when to break the news to Sophia or how to even confront my ex about any of this. I feel like such a fool. No way am I saying you have any obligation to Sophie, just wanting to throw that out there first. But listen to me and really try to see it from Sophie's eyes. You are the only man she has ever known to be her dad. Probably the only man she will ever know us. Her mom seems to have no interest in finding the real dad. You changed her diapers, kissed her boo-boos, and raised her right for all those critical years, to one day wake up and find out that the man who called dad is all of a sudden no longer, and he wants nothing to do with you, is a gut-wrenching thing feeling. I think if anything, you could have maintained an emotional tie to her. I grew up with my father and I always wanted that connection with my dad. And the sad thing is I knew who he was. But he never made time for me until his oldest son passed away, my brother Rip, and now he wants a connection to all his children. And I just don't know how to because we never had one. So it's a hurting thing. Listen to Dad. All the anger you feel towards that ex-wife, which is more than justified. Sophie probably feels too, because in her eyes, her mom is the reason you don't love her anymore. Just something to think about. And TA for not paying for college, but you are an asshole when it comes to contributing to what I'm assuming is a well of self-esteem issues for Sophie. Kids aren't fucking stupid. And chances are, she's always felt like she matters very little to probably anyone because of both you and her mother. You're telling me you spent the first 2 years of her life taking care of her as her father. And because her mother, who is also an asshole, lied to you, you were able to just cut emotional ties so easily. Besides all that, you seem to rationalize it, with it having always been out in the open that this is how it has always been. That's a piss-poor excuse, because life doesn't work that way, and just because you're honest about a situation doesn't make it less painful. I feel like this can't be a real situation, but that's probably because I don't want it to be. I get it. You look at Sophie and you relive the memories of your wife cheating on you and lying. My problem is that you still abandoned a relationship with Sophie, which it seems you only did despite and get back at her mother. You even refer to her as the girl. And while you have made some shitty attempts to be nice to her, she knows what she is to you, and I can't imagine it to be anything less than painful. Congrats. You're not an asshole for the thing you asked about. But that doesn't mean you're not generally an asshole. And are you kidding? What sort of court system keeps you on the hook for child support for a kid that isn't yours? I've heard this can happen, but thought it was a myth. Just crazy. There's no way you'd be expected to pay for her college. Your ex is batshit crazy. I'm probably in the minority here. But yeah, I think she didn't ask for any of this. So if you were willing to pay the child support, you should have been willing to treat her like part of the family too. You intentionally alienated her out of spite because of what her mother did to you. You shouldn't be resentful of a kid who had no control over the situation. You had years to be a decent father to her, and the blow of "I can't pay for your college" or "only pay partial" wouldn't have stung so bad, but you spent years treating her politely. That's totally alienation of affection. Can't imagine what it must feel like to be Sophie. Fucking heartbreaking. I wasn't willing to pay child support. I tried to fight it for a while, and just gave up because it was stressing me out. And TA and Mom should have been saving for a college fund. You and Mom should have tried to find out who the bio dad is in case of medical emergencies and for her daughter's medical history. Let's move on to my thoughts and advice for the person that is dealing with this problem. Your situation's a whirlwind of complicated emotions and unexpected revelations. Discovering a biological link to Sophie after years of drawing a clear boundary is shaking things up. It's tough on Sophie, who sees you as her father figure. While your initial decision aimed to protect yourself, it inadvertently hurt her deeply. It might be time to reassess and approach this with empathy. Acknowledge her feelings while navigating your own confusion and hurt. Finding a middle ground could be key to untangling this delicate situation. I wish you the best of luck moving forward. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.